Hi, and welcome back to the episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow, and today's episode, we're going to get into the part two of a podcast that I had earlier called The Anime in North America. And it basically was a podcast about, the situation of how anime sort of came to North America. And I'm going to go over it, or started going over a big chunk of it in part one. And now I'm going to continue with part two. All right? So before I begin, I want to remind everyone to go down below, click like, and click subscribe. Again, that helps the YouTube algorithm and analytics, do its job and work. I like to thank you for your support. I also have the thanks button down below. If you like this particular episode or the series that I'm making right now, then you can also put your thanks as well there. Plus, also I have other ways that you can support me with through the Patreon and through PayPal, where I've also made exclusive episodes for the subscribers. I'm currently working on the second set of 5 episodes block for those subscribers. So definitely, I'll be trying to post those as soon as I can, finish off that sort of grouping of 5. All right, and so hopefully drop those very soon. So again, you can support me. The links are below. Okay. So today's episode is I'm going to get into more of this particular podcast that came out called "The Anime in America," and again, it's just a podcast going over different things that sort of happened, in the industry of anime as it's just starting to come over to the North American shores. And I'm gonna basically go through it because I've noticed there's several things that are, you know, maybe need to be elaborated on. I wouldn't say they would just say incorrect or anything, but it just should be a little bit elaborated and maybe a little more emphasis has been put on it, as some parts seem to be passed over. So I want to go over kind of with you, and give you my take, as I'm one of the people that are sort of was in this, and it very well describes people like me, and I want to see basically how accurate and more concise for that. All right. So, without delay, let's begin. The transition from analog to digital marked a huge shift in fan subbing. As noted, practitioners had been early adopters of the internet, participating in anime-focused web rings and mailing lists to coordinate distribution. But once the internet speeds and computer technology advanced to the point where anime could be distributed entirely online, things changed a lot, because the medium of VHS was extraordinarily linked to the fansubbers code of honor. Okay, now I've made a whole entire episode about the forgotten rules of fansubbing, and this basically relates to this exact point. And I'll just quickly go over it really quickly here. Before, the fansubbers just wanted to be a secondary source of how to get the anime to the masses, right? We weren't trying to compete in any way with the licensed commercial companies who are actually trying to legitimately make money on these products and get anime to a full large scale market that fan subbers and that kind of stuff couldn't do, right? I mean, we like fan subbers couldn't get into, like, let's say Best Buy or into Costco and Fry's Electronics and that kind of stuff, right? To have DVDs on the shelf or in the library, places like that. You need a major big company to do the proper licensing for them, and of course, to even get anime on TV, Gundam Wing, Sailor Moon, Gundam Seed, Inuyasha, right? You need a company to do it properly, right, and legally. And so fan subbers didn't want to be, these people that got into that sort of thing. So we had this thing of code, this sort of rules of codes of honor, the unwritten rules of fan subbing, because nobody actually really wrote these down or saying that if you are a fan subber, you must do this, 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 this. There wasn't that kind of thing, right? So that's what he's referring to here. He goes back to the interview with Savakis. Yeah, the code of honor. So the number one thing that is that this was the fans for fans. So nobody was supposed to make a profit off these. This is the first and foremost. That's probably the most important statement or Fan subs were meant to supplement what was available legally. So they were not meant to replace what was available legally. So when everyone was supposed to support, and not ideally everyone who had fan subs, if a show came out commercially, they were supposed to delete their fan subs and record them over or trash the tapes, whatever, and then buy legal copies, right? And a lot of people sort of did that, right? I mean, if the anime was that good or they liked it and they liked to watch it over and over type of thing, then a lot of people went out and got the legitimate copies when they came out, because in many times they were better quality copies than the ones that they actually had on VHS tapes. Makes sense, right? Because if you make a copy of a copy, you're degrading the quality, the color, the resolution, and all that kind of stuff of the actual copy. So if you could get a DVD or even just a VHS tape of the actual show, not only were you supporting the market, you're supporting the advancement of anime in North America, but you also got a better quality copy that would, of course, enhance your enjoyment. Maybe you could actually see some of the stuff that you missed on your crappy copy that you had, right? So that's why a lot of people went up and got better copies, right? And so some people did that, some people didn't. You're right. And to be honest, the commercial releases weren't really that much better in that era. So and he's right. In the very, very beginning, the fan sub releases were pretty good quality, and the commercial release copies were they weren't perfect either, but I mean they were still at least better quality anyway. Maybe the subtitles and the translations weren't as good, but definitely they were up in the quality anyway, and especially when it got to doing dubs and doing multiple releases on DVD and that kind of stuff. That in itself really opened up the market, because there's a whole bunch of people that wasn't going to get into Japanese animation just because they just didn't want to read the subtitles, right? By having a dub version, they could get it onto TV. They can get it on over the airwaves. So that's why things like dub Sailor Moon, dub Dragon Ball, it really was very, very immensely popular and really helped the market grow. So I don't know how often that happened, but people worked really hard to not make a profit at that point. And what is really easy not to make a profit in the anime business anyway. And as I said at the very beginning, anime was really kind of tenuous, because it was really hit and miss. You don't know whether or not certain anime OVAs were really going to sell or not. And some things were really, did take off, and some were a hit, and some things weren't, right? So it was kind of a touch and go, and tastes and genres changed really quickly too. So you couldn't hold on to things too long, because once the trend, let's say Sailor Moon, for example, ended, and people started getting into Gundam or something, and then so all of a sudden everyone's shifting over to Gundam, and then sort of that went for a while, and then all of a sudden, okay, they kind of stopped watching that, and then this big huge kick for Inuyasha sort of came in, and so it's really it's different cycles and different waves that you got to catch on to. That was number one. Number two was to do everything to keep these tapes out of the hands of people who did sell them for profit. And there was a huge problem back then with what we call gray area fan subbers. These were known as the worst one was known as S. Baldrick, and he went went by a couple different names. And these were fan subs that were basically meant to be copied and sold at conventions. Okay, so obviously if these videos are can be produced at home. Obviously, people who had access to the translations and that kind of stuff, or made versions of this kind of equipment, could theoretically make a version, and because it's not available commercially, but there's lots of anime fans available that didn't know where to get the stuff. If it showed up or was available for $20 or $30, then they might be inclined to put that money down and pay for these bootleg copies, right? And so we did have a huge problem with that, and that's some people who were commenting, why don't you distribute scripts and that kind of stuff as often? It's just that's one of the ways to deter these people from basically stealing your scripts and whatnot, applying them onto videos and that kind of stuff, and then of course selling these tapes, right? Comic-Cons and conventions often had this creepy guy in a booth with a bunch of tapes in clamshell cases with really badly colored Xerox labels. And so we would actually put the video fans for fans, not for sale, on rent. and we did whatever else we could without screwing up the video too much, because the ultimate there was nothing we could do if someone really wanted to sell these tapes profit, except try very hard not to let them get our tapes. Okay, so it's not like that we had like a hit list of these people that we definitely do not distribute to these people or not whatnot, because by the time those people get a copy of your tape, it's already a copy of a copy. And so if they're going to try to mass copy your copy, then it's already going to be like 2-3 generations down the line. So the person who ends up selling the tape is going to get a pretty shitty copy anyway, right? And so so the biggest preventative thing that we did was basically just the huge cap on getting episodes not basically putting the scripts and that goes at least digitally online. So at least the person at least had to work hard to get that part of it, and then just do things that had lots and lots of episodes, because then that also deters trying to rework huge series, because then obviously in order to get the huge series you have to spend a hell of a lot of time re-subtitling and all that kind of stuff, retyping everything back in, and of course that was very, very time consumptive. So that was a really big kind of anti-draw for that. And at this time, because science fiction cons and even comic cons weren't really in the know about how anime works and how how bootlegging and this kind of stuff and how this whole entire concept of fan subs work, then these sort of shady people were allowed to exist for a while. It was only until the actual sort of modernization of actual anime conventions, right? Anime specific conventions, where this thing got really clamped down, and this entire sort of movement for anti bootleg, anti not official Japanese merchandise sort of really came in, and this is one of those things that was really good at this particular time, because when you go to a convention and you spend all this money to go to a convention, right? You want to make sure that the stuff that you're buying in the convention hall is legit, right? You don't because it's expensive to get into the convention. You're buying this stuff, and it's pretty expensive, whether it's CDs, whether it's tapes, whether or not it's like posters and whatever, right? It's all pretty expensive, right? And so you want to make sure that this stuff is legit, right? You don't want to buy some sort of Hong Kong knockoff or whatever like that at like legit prices, right? Likewise, you don't want to let those Hong Kong knockoffs and that kind of stuff undercut everybody else who's really selling legit stuff. So there was this really big push towards anti-bootleg, quote, homemade stuff, right? And unfortunately, in the modern day convention, especially after the anime crash, a lot of dealers and that kind of stuff no longer go to these conventions. A lot of these commercial companies no longer are going to these conventions. So finding legit merchandise at these conventions are just kind of really hit and miss. And then so these conventions are kind of going, well, who do we get to replace all these people that that are no longer buying tables and that kind of stuff at our dealer's room. So unfortunately, just because of the way that the market has gone, they started accepting people who are artists, quote artists, right? People who are making homemade stuff, like even though they're especially in the modern era where there's more technology, we can print our own posters and prints. We can actually 3D print and manufacture our own, technically our own merchandise per se, and whatnot. But so we in ourselves have now accepted this as being all right. Somehow this is even though we're stealing intellectual property and that kind of stuff, we've somehow brainwashed ourselves that this is okay. This is anime still. This is North American made anime kind of thing, right? And we've accepted that this is okay. Sure, some conventions are still clamping down on that, and those are far and few between nowadays. But any ones that has any real credibility will clamp down on this stuff. But I said everything else in the middle is just free reign for the for the pirates and the bootlegs to proliferate. So this is the concept behind that is this clamp down towards legitimate stuff. We don't want to impede what the commercial companies and of course what the Japanese companies are actually trying to do. By the end of the VHS era, even turning zero profit and often losing money on these ventures, a lot of fan subbing groups were already becoming uncomfortable with the scale of their distribution. But they held on to one fact of the medium that they still worked with, okay? And he comments, but digital fan subbing was a whole nother ball of wax. That's when we lost a lot of VHS era fan subbers. A lot of them just bowed out right then and there, okay? Now, I'm one of them, so I'm in that exact same ball of wax. Okay, that's the word. Yeah, you're right. We fan sub stuff pretty much at a loss, right? I mean, there with the help of some people that kind of helped offset the things with some donations and that kind of stuff. Pretty much it's still a losing venture, right? We just did it just to get the anime out there, to make it sort of accessible to everybody, right? Just trying to try to get it out there. But then, as I said, when it got into even the DVD era, right? So we're getting away from VHS and being able to actually, make DVDs of our animes and that kind of stuff. That was, that could have been possibly something that was good, because then, being able to duplicate the DVDs, you wouldn't have the loss in quality when you go from VHS to VHS, right? But the problem is that, the DVD era kind of sort of, very tail end of the 90s and into the 2000s. But then right around the 2000s is when, this era of sharing and file downloading and being able to have the technology to compress the video files to a small enough size. The internet just got fast enough that you can actually download them at some reasonable speed. The lifespan of that little DVD era wasn't very long, right? It's just a couple years into the 2000s, then that sort of kind of took kind of fuzzied up and kind of took off, and DVDs went right down. So so even as a VHS fan subber, you switched over to DVD, which is kind of more of a digital form. It still probably wouldn't have lasted, because the digital era basically took over everything, right? It basically was the revolution that allowed all the analog stuff, like the actual physical process of doing things in real time and all that kind of stuff. We've now managed to entirely do the distribution online, and entirely do all the fan subbing and all that kind of stuff with any computer, and whatnot, because you no longer needed that Genlock. You no longer needed a graphics card or whatever that could take in and sample in a Laserdisc or a VHS tape or anything, right? All the video, the audio, the editing, the subtitling, and all that kind of stuff could all be done with the computer, right? And so that really changed things a lot. And and at that time I felt there's enough people out there doing fan subbing and that, because I don't have to do any more of the modern stuff, right? Because anything that modern comes out is going to be taken care of. And at this time, just about everything I wanted done, like, so 2004, everything that I ever wanted to be done. Okay, there's a few titles that I was sort of working on that wasn't quite done yet, but I could go with or without them, right? Sort of that kind of idea, right? And so I just said, okay, you know what? I've got translations and fan subbed all the things that I've ever wanted to do. Double Zeta Gundam, Heavy Metal Elgime, Metal Armored Dragonar, okay? SPT Lazenar, that's another kind of one that did that. Things like that. G Gundam, okay? Things like that are all things that I've always wanted to have done, and and I didn't mind spending the money for the translators and all that kind of stuff to get them done. Now they're done; they're kind of off the bucket list. I don't care if someone decides to digitally fan sub them or whatever. Whatever. That's sort of my everything done on my checklist that I needed. Now, sure, there was a couple of things I had getting set up ready to go. I had things like Wild Knight's Gulkeever. I had Gaku Saver. What else I had? I had Metal Jack. I just bought the lasers just for Metal Jack, so I got that all sort of lined up and thinking of doing that. And then I just sort of said, as much as I like those things and that kind of stuff, I could I could do without them. I don't really need to have these things. I'm sure someone will eventually take care of that. Probably, maybe, I don't know. I don't even know if Metal Jack is even fan sub now. I know Wild Knight's Gulkeeper, I do believe is. And Gaku Savior, it's a questionable OVA. I don't know if anyone's ever done that one, but it's sort of hit and miss and go. And if I really really wanted, I could probably go back and do it because I still do have the laser discs for those. But for the most part, I've done what I need to do. I've been in the industry at that time for 14 years. And I've already done like 1,000 videos, right? So I mean, just about everything I've done, a good chunk of it has been commercially released or been done digitally. So I think I've done my part to the industry. So I don't really need to stay in it, right? Let pass it over and let the younger generation do. And then, of course, so that, again, opens up a whole new ball of wax because now, with this new digital sort of era, a lot of people can have kind of forgotten what the unspoken rules of fan subbing, the premises of the origins of why you do fan subbing. That all of a sudden got lost. The new generation disregarded a lot of the stuff. They don't understand. They may not have understood why these principles work the way they do, and then of course this caused a lot of conflicts, a lot of the me movement. It got to a point where it wasn't about displaying the art and the the thing that we call Japanese animation. No, it was more about self promotion. Look what I can do. This is what why my fan subs are better than your fan subs. It's getting to a point where a lot of people are adding their own their own touches, their translations, and all this kind of stuff. Their own flavor was being put into the anime and used as a showcase for themselves, to build themselves up as this is my trophy. Is this anime, okay? And they started treating it like that, is as if it belonged to them somehow. I play stake in this anime because I did it first, or I did it this way. And this is where a lot of factions and subdividing of the genre and fractures of the anime community all just began. And I won't speak too much about that because as I said, I again at this point, stepped away from all the politics and that kind of stuff and all the stuff that was going on, and just, I said, just continued to enjoy the anime for what it was, not for the community. And I said the community started becoming extremely toxic at this point. Okay, so I hope you found that very interesting. And again, this is a great way to find that other people sort of have the same sort of views and has sort of trying to document it on paper. And I think this is one of those situations where people are trying to write an account of what's sort of going on, or try to report on something, and then without getting all the information together, and without actually trying to get all the the sources and that kind of stuff, to help make it a little bit more concise. This is what happens. It kind of becomes very, very topological. So I'm glad that I've gone through and found this article, and I'm going to go through it with you to sort of let you know that other people also see this sort of development and that kind of stuff happen in the industry as it grows here in North America. All right. So again, we're getting more episodes about the history and that kind of stuff, as I got some more fan letters, and I also got some. I managed to find some of the first couple of fan letters that I actually sent out when I first got into this hobby. I managed to keep a couple of the letters of some of the first people that I actually sent letters to. So again, make sure you're subscribed, and then I'll go and get into those episodes very shortly. All right. So until next time. See you again.